had multiple copies.
You need me to help?
No, I'm just straightening back out from the sheet already printed. So, I think we do all that trouble. Yeah, Nicole did it.
Probably cool
Oh,
too.
yeah. Got some drawings I gotta update. Yeah.
It's supposed to rain, so that'd be better.
That whole site is already clear too, right? I mean,
No,
oh,
it
it's not
needs to
rough.
be more fill brought in
But
and
it's-
compacted.
It's not like force it, it's clear, right?
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay.
Except for that one building.
Yeah.
That needs to move.
Is
Or
there,
two buildings.
is there an agenda? Is there? Yeah.
Yeah, that one's gonna be work, well, okay, that's fine.
Want me to make a copy right now? What? What do we just say, two?
I don't need all the stuff, if it is.
You just want the agenda?
Just a couple pages, yeah.
Okay.
That'd be perfect.
Alright, now I'm just get my other one. There you go, Ben.
That's very much.
We gotta make sure this isn't mine. Is there,
It is yours.
was mine?
Yeah, so just copy of what you need.
Well, Brian, if you want me to make a copy, it's gonna take a second.
You just need one.
Yeah.
Hi, Winnie. Do you want a copy of the meeting packet? She's got to make it. I'll just tell her right now.
That's okay, I don't need it, that's fine.
You don't need it?
Did it rain here?
Hmm?
Did it rain here?
Yeah, a little. Not enough.
Kinda got your box in here, Randy.
Okay, we're good. I'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Needham?
Here.
Councilman Bill?
Here.
Supervisor Runyon?
here.
Councilman Brown? Here. Councilman Volusia?
Here.
Okay, today's meeting, we have two guest speakers. We'll start with Ben Driscoll. He's from Catholic Charities, and he's going to talk to us about the SNAP program.
Where would you like me to,
Anywhere you
right here is good?
Yep. Anywhere.
Okay. Thank you, the supervisor and the town board for the invitation to come. My name is Ben Driscoll. I work for Catholic Charities of Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties. I was before this board in 2019. It was my idea that I would visit each of the 12 municipalities in Warren County just to share some information on the programs and services that I administer at Catholic Charities, which are programs available to all residents of Warren County. As you know, the world kind of changed a year after that. So I'm finally getting back to doing some community outreach campaigns. I've already been to town of Lake George, Chestertown, Warrensburg. I backed out of Stony Creek the other night just because I had to look after some senior residents in my neighborhood. But again, I'm happy to be here. I operate a program called Nutrition Outreach and Education Program, and it educates and informs people about the federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program up until about 12 years ago, also known as food stamps. In Warren County, approximately 4,000 households each month receive SNAP benefits. That represents about 7,000 individuals, or between 11 and 12% of our population. My job through a state grant that's made available to most every county in New York State is to find those individuals and families who may be eligible for the program but not yet receiving it. I tell people, and I'm ready to be challenged, SNAP benefits comes out of the same vat of money that Social Security does, that school monies come from highway monies. When I received my first paycheck as a teenager, and possibly some of you, they took out FICA, and I go, what the heck is FICA? Well, it's hundreds, if not thousands, of different federal programs. So essentially, all of us have been throwing a penny or two into a fund, and we have a little bank in Albany or in Washington, D.C., with all those pennies in there for us if and when we're ever eligible for that program. I got a phone call from an individual from Glens Falls that I know, a naval veteran, former teacher, who is fallen on hard times. It took a lot for him to call me, even though he knew me, and that all the information is confidential, to see if he would be eligible. I'm crunching the numbers between his and his wife. Social Security, he's 80 years old. Social Security, as well as small pensions that both receive, to see if they're going to be eligible. If they're not eligible for SNAP, they may be eligible for the Home Energy Assistance Program, which has a higher threshold as far as eligibility. But the important thing is whether it's a young family, a senior citizen, a veteran. Most families that receive SNAP have a regular income. That could be employment, it can be some type of a disability benefit, or a combination of all of those. The important thing is that the program is there. In fact, I also challenge people to say that it actually saves the county money. The biggest budget item, the biggest budget department in Warren County is Department of Social Services. That's because all of that federal money is coming from Washington, D.C. into the county to assist families. They're spending their SNAP monies at supermarkets and places where they can buy food, and it's keeping them out of the doctor's offices and hospitals more often. The biggest cash cow at the department, as you might guess, is Medicaid. So again, it keeps people healthier. Children who have been fed do better in school, adults do better in the workplace, and seniors are more independent and less reliant on others to take care of them. They don't have to make that choice between filling a prescription at the pharmacy or buying food. So again, my job is to visit area food pantries, other not-for-profits. I'm finally gonna, I think, month of July, get up here for the town's big first Monday distribution, and just share information. I have this flyer posted on your bulletin board, and I get basically any type of group or organization. I also encourage elected officials and community leaders to share that information with constituents that you believe may be eligible. I can be contacted, I can put stuff in the mail, I can help an individual over the telephone or email, prepare, and I'm at Department of Social Services almost on a daily basis, dropping off or sharing information with the department. The card that they use is a debit card, so unlike years and years ago when I called it, they had monopoly money, colored money, same thing for the Women, Infant, and Children program. If you ever gotten back of the line at the supermarket with someone who had either food stamps or WIC, you were in the wrong line because you were going to wait. Now it's a debit card, you put in your PIN number, and boom, you're in and out, just like everyone else. Also, people don't need to point to their food basket and say, you know, look what they're eating off of my dime, essentially. Again, we're all paying into the system, and it helps families. The eligibility for a household of 2 of seniors or receiving a disability benefit, or young families who are paying child care for a family of 2 that fall into that category, it's $3,287 a month. That's gross income or gross resources. So I'm more than happy to, again, to contact people. At times when I can fit it into my schedule, I'll come out. I also do a lot of work over at North Country Ministry. It's kind of an outreach site for me in the North Country. I spent an hour and a half at their Brant Lake food pantry that they do every Wednesday morning before Warrensburg does their afternoon pantry, and I got 9 applications completed. Not all of them will be eligible, but at least, you know, you don't know until you do the application. It only takes about 10 or 12 minutes to complete. And again, I appreciate the time and be happy to answer any questions. Also, I gave you my business card for Catholic Charities, but also for as a member of the Board of Supervisors. I find personally my ability to introduce or reintroduce myself to town board members gives me a little bit better perspective on what's going on in individual municipalities, what the needs and concerns of residents are. So I'm going to hang around for a little while, and probably until the end of the meeting. And again, appreciate the invitation. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, then, did you want to go next, Winnie? Because I would love to. Okay, if you don't, you guys don't.
As member of TCA, I'm applying for the occupancy grant for the Thurman Fall Farm Tour. You've been kind enough to give it to us right along. We do hope to do some changes in our advertising this year, so I've left the application kind of vague. We've always spent quite a bit of money, or late years, we've been spending quite a bit of money on rack cards and then the distribution of them. I've got a feeling, and others have given the same opinion, that the rack cards and the printer material is not the way to go anymore. That's the social media. I've been doing some of the social media advertising, but I'm not proficient in it. I don't know at all really what I'm doing, and I think if we paid somebody, we'd get a lot bigger bang with our dollar. So we've got somebody coming in to talk to us, and they've given us a proposal, and we've got somebody coming in to talk to us. So I'm asking for the grant again. And just while I've got you, I want to thank you for the Woods Walk grant. That was great. We had, I think, the best turnout we've had, and I know there was an issue with the vote last time, so I appreciate that going through. So thank you for that. Do you have any questions?
I did get this, and I did hand it out to everybody. I did have for the budget for the OCTAX, this $12,000, and I'm fine with that, it's up to whatever the board thinks, I mean, you're fine with it too, and, yeah, okay, then we'll just call a vote, all in favor of, well, we should bring the resolution to the floor first, because we didn't have one prepared, I didn't have time to make the resolution. Okay, so Ed's bringing the resolution to the floor. And Doug is seconding it for the Woods, no, for the Fall Farm Tour. And there's no further discussion, right, we're all okay, yeah? In favor of dollar amount of $12,000. All in favor, say aye.
Abstain.
Thank you. I'm gonna sneak out, but thank you for sneaking me in, and I appreciate
Yeah.
the support that the board's always given us, so thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, May.
Thanks, bro.
Okay, so the next speaker we have is Gary and John from Cedarwood Engineering. They're here to discuss highway garage application. And they did provide us with a resolution that we need in order to move forward. And you'll have to explain that because I don't know what a negative declaration
Yes.
is.
So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna sit while I present, just because I'm gonna
Fine.
make some notes. So I'll describe, excuse me, this is the environmental review. So any action you undertake as a municipality has to go through the SECRA process, which is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So what we're gonna do tonight, we're here to help the board get through the process. Whatever we state is not set in stone. So I'm gonna rifle through it, and feel free to interrupt me if you have questions or request any changes. I'm just here to help explain the process, and if there's any tweaks we wanna make. So basically when you do environmentals for review for the new highway garage project, you can classify the action under the SECRA process. So it's either a type 2 action, which this does not fall under, which is similar to like if you have to replace a water main in kind, a low level impact. With that, you don't have to do much of anything. The next is an unlisted action, which this falls under an unlisted action. It's not a type 1 action. So type 1 is the most restrictive, where you have to do a long environmental assessment form and then a coordinated review with all the agencies, and it takes a minimum, you'll do the first board meeting, you have a 30-day window to send it out to the agencies, get responses back. So again, this is an unlisted action, which means it doesn't fall into a type 1 and it doesn't fall into a type 2 being unlisted. So what we're gonna do here tonight is we're going through the short environmental assessment review that the state puts out. We'll go through part 1, make sure we're in agreement. If we wanna make any tweaks, you're welcome. We will just handwrite and cross something out and make sure we're on the same page. And then you go into part 2 and part 3, which is determining the effects of the environmental impact, which we believe it'll be a negative declaration, which means no major impact, and then sign off and close the environmental review process out. Being a short environmental assessment that we're doing, an unlisted action, we are not intending to do coordinated review because it is not needed with this process. We still will go through all the permitting requirements. We're still submitting to APA for a jurisdictional inquiry form, which we're working with them right now. And still, we're still doing all the best practices. You're not bypassing anything, and it's all, in accordance with the required process. So what I will do next, and like I said, I'll try to go quick because you'll probably be sick of my voice after I read through all of this. Feel free if there's any, questions to interrupt me, and if there's any changes, we'll do it together. And then the final one will be signed by the supervisor, and then we can get through it and close it out.
Okay.
All right. So the first one we're going to look at is the form. It's a 3-pager. It's a short environmental assessment form, part 1, which is project information. So name of action is Thurman New Highway Garage. Project location 78 Irving Baker Road. Brief description of the action. A new highway garage is to be built on town land for the town of Thurman, which is currently in use as a C&D landfill area. Demolition of 2,000 square feet of existing landfill maintenance and administrative buildings will occur. Prefabricated metal buildings with a mezzanine on concrete slabs will be constructed. To service the garage, a new well and new septic field with 100% reserve will be installed. Due to 1 acre of disturbance, a stormwater pollution prevention post-construction control practices will be incorporated along with erosion and sediment control practices in accordance with DEC regulations. Name of applicant or sponsor is Town of Thurman. You have your telephone and email listed The supervisor is typically who we list as the project contact for questions. Address listed, city, Thurman, state, New York, zip code listed. Does the proposed action, number one, does the proposed action only involve legislative adoption of a plan, local law, ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation? The answer is no, so we'll proceed to part two, or question two. Number two, does the proposed action require permit, approval, or funding from any other governmental agency? So yes, and we listed APA jurisdictional inquiry form because it's going to be determined what's going to be required through permitting as we go. Town building permit will be required, and then a DC is also going to be required for that. That acronym, when you see it, SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, because any disturbance you're taking on over 1 acre will have to do post-construction control practices and erosion and sediment control. So erosion and sediment control is just making sure nothing's running off the site, like silt fences, stuff like that. And then your post-construction control is likely going to be some sort of infiltration pond or something like that, where we can control, any additional impervious area you're adding to that site. We have to follow their regulations and make sure that's taken care of and not just discharged off the project site.
We'll design that, but Pat will construct that
Yeah.
as he's doing the septic field and stuff.
Yeah.
And
And
prepping the site for his new building.
He just walked in, so.
he just signed you up for a lot. Yeah.
He has to hand dig that tomorrow.
And that's all part of the design stage, which isn't really into the environmentals, but we're happy to address it as it comes. So total acreage of proposed action, 51.74 acres. Total acreage to be physically disturbed is around 2.9 acres. We're conservative on that estimate. Total acreage owned or controlled by the applicant, we put 71.13 acres there. Check all land uses that occur on, are adjoining or near proposed action. We just have rural and forest. Number 5, is the proposed action a permitted use under the zoning regulations? We have yes. Consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, we put yes. Is the proposed action consistent with the predominant character of the existing built or natural landscape? We have yes, because it is, it's not fully developed, but it is a developed area that is cleared over there. Is the site of the proposed action located in or does it adjoin a state listed critical environmental area? No, we checked DC Environmental Resource Mapper when we checked this, and it was not. Number 8, will the proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels? We have no. Are public transportation services available at or near the proposed action? No. Are any pedestrian accommodations or bicycle routes available on or near the site of the proposed action? No. Some of these are unique because this is written for any type of project, so.
Yeah.
Does the proposed action meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? It's going to be yes, because Gary's going to design to be in compliance with state energy code requirements per code. Will the proposed action connect to an existing public or private water supply? No. A new well is planned to be drilled and installed. Will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater? Again, no. We're going to design a new subsurface septic system with 100% reserve area to be installed. Does the project site contain or is it substantially contiguous to a building, archaeological site, or district which is listed on the National or State Register of Historic Places or that has been determined by the Commissioner of the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the State Register of Historic Places? We have no. Is the project site or any portion of it located in or adjacent to an area designated as sensitive for the archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office Archaeological Site Inventory? No. Does any of the portion of the project site of the proposed action or landfill or lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated by a federal, state, or local agency? Yes. Would the proposed action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetland or water body? No. So the only thing over there is Patterson Brook. The nearest wetland is over 450 feet from the nearest proposed land disturbance. And like we stated before, we're not bypassing any permitting. We're still going through APA jurisdictional inquiry form. We submit the map, proposed action. There's no getting around it, so we're all compliant with everything. Identify the typical habitats that occur on or are likely to be found on the project site. Check all that applies. We have forest, urban, wetland. Does the site of the proposed action contain any species of animal or associated habitats listed by the state or federal government as threatened or endangered? No. Is the project site listed in the 100-year floodplain? So we put no for that based on our developed area of our disturbed area. not in the flood zone there. Will the proposed action create stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources? So technically yes, because you're adding impervious area to a project site we're developing. So A, will stormwater discharges flow to adjacent properties? No. Will stormwater discharges be directed to established conveyance systems? No, there's no existing conveyance systems. That's what we're doing when we do the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, with the post-construction control practices. So, anything we're adding with impervious area is going to be treated and contained on site, and hopefully, we'll find out by our field work if infiltration basin is going to work or we're going to need a different practice. Does the proposed action include construction or other activities that would result in the impoundment of water or other liquids, so retention pond, waste lagoon, dam? We put yes to be conservative, even though it's not a true dam. It's going to be likely an infiltration basin. It'll withhold water, but it's going to infiltrate. It's not, unless we encounter something we're not anticipating, like a clay barrier or rock. We're not planning to do a wet pond that's going to hold water. So we're being very conservative, listing as a yes, even though it's technically a no. Has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? We put yes. The garage will be built on town land that is used as a C&D landfill area. Has the site of the proposed action or an adjoining property been the subject of a remediation, ongoing or completed for hazardous waste? No. So if the town board accepts all these answers, if not, now's your time to make the tweak, and you can, if it's approved, then you would sign the part 1 as the supervisor.
Does anyone have any discussion on this?
The 2.9 acres of disturbance, does that include the relocation of the transfer station?
No, that just encompasses the new building.
Okay.
The slope, the fill that we have to bring in, the slope, obviously the septic field that's on virgin land beyond the slope, and the infiltration pond.
Because we are going to relocate the transfer station, won't the APA and DEC both look at that as part of the same project?
It could, I have the road relocated.
Is it being relocated? I mean, yes,
It
you're
is.
typically right. You don't segment projects. So if that's something we want to add in, we can tweak this response. I mean, now would be the time to do it. I know we want to get through this because we're bonding, so we can add a little blurb in there to be conservative.
The only reason I didn't, you're just building a little building on top of undisturbed, it's already flat.
Yeah.
I was
So-
just wondering though, I mean, we are going to create more impervious surface because we're going to probably pave that at some point when we pay for the garage.
Oh, you're paying for the, okay.
I'm just assuming that we will. I mean, I've proposed to the board, and I guess it hasn't made it into the plans yet, that the site plan for the highway garage should include the site plan for the transfer station so that we get it all done at one time, because it's all basically one project.
It's a good idea. Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
Yeah,
you guys agree with me, I mean, let them, I talked to Gary about this before, and the cost to include the design or layout of the transfer station is not gonna add much to the project. And at least the public, when they look at this and see what we're doing, it'll all make sense to them.
Like we're abolishing the transfer station.
Yeah,
That's still gonna be there.
and it'll look organized and people will know what we're doing, that it's been thought out.
Okay.
And that's,
So-
go ahead.
That's all I'm saying.
And so that, I'll get you in a second. So that would mean just including that in the planning process, but as far as the building of it and the placing of the containers, we can do that ourselves?
Yeah, so you just have to be careful, like you're saying with DEC and any action, you don't really want to segment an action if it's part of the proposed project. So if you are intending to include that, whether you build it or not, it's better to include it in the environmentals on the front end. Even if you don't end up building it, like we can include it in our calculations when we do the SWIP and everything else for additional impervious area to make sure we're covered it. You're covered in environmentals. If you want it on the plans, I'm sure that's not a big deal to add, because
No.
as far as additional acreage, I don't. I mean, we're at 2.9, so if we say 3.5 or 4 acres
Yeah.
as a very conservative estimate to tweak this number, and then just add one more sentence in the description of the proposed action. I think we're comfortable with you doing that as a board. Like I said, this is our best shot at it. That's why we're reviewing it. This
Yeah.
is the night you can make those tweaks. They can be handwritten in. and then you're covered under the
Okay.
environmentals. And because it's finalized doesn't mean you can't change it prior to design. If something changes, you're adding something on top of it or removing it, you can always come back in and amend the environmentals. It's an unlisted action with uncoordinated review, so it'd only take one additional meeting. So I would recommend, if you think you're gonna do it, to add that sentence as a brief description on something the board agrees on, and then just update the total acreage to be physically disturbed. If we're at 2.9, we can say, I mean, if you wanna say 4 to be conservative, we're gonna be, you know, that should be overly conservative with what you're adding in.
The risk if we don't do what we're talking about now is that if there's somebody who's opposed to the project.
Correct.
They could raise the issue with the park agency or DEC.
Yes.
Or DEC or park agency could look at it as if we're segmenting the project.
Yes, and that's a dirty word in this world.
And that could throw
Yeah.
a whole monkey wrench into the project.
Yes, 100%. I'm in full agreement with that. So, you know, we would recommend to be conservatively bumping, because I don't know exactly how much you plan on adding to the paving area up there. If we're at 2.9, which is a conservative area of what we've done, if you bump to 4, you know, I would assume that would cover you, and then add in a sentence that you agree upon. I don't know exactly how you want to word it.
Where would we add that?
Just in the brief description of proposed action is all you should have to do, because I don't believe, correct me if the board thinks otherwise, I don't believe that would change any other listed area.
You'll have to tell me what number that
Oh,
is.
so the only changes should be on page 1 of 3. So item number 3, you would change 3B from 2.9 to 4 acres,
Okay.
which would be giving us a conservative area to include it. And then the only other thing you would do is, again, on page 1 of 3, up near the top where it says brief description of proposed action,
Okay.
you can add a sentence there that the board agrees on. I don't know exactly how you want to word it, maybe Randy, and I know if it's, you know,
Did you want to make your comment before we did this, or does it pertain to this?
Well, I was just gonna ask something about the stormwater and the dry pond
Oh,
that we're
okay.
talking about.
It doesn't affect the sentence we're trying to come up
Yep.
with? Okay.
I guess just start the description with relocation of the existing transfer station and construction of a new highway garage. Just
Yep.
something along those lines.
Okay.
Location of existing transfer station. Relocation of existing transfer station
And construction of a new highway garage.
and what?
And construction of a new highway garage. I mean, you already have that part of it.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so I'll just write relocation of existing transfer station. Is that good?
and then I don't believe any other section would change in this, because we'd be covered under everything else. And like I said, this is kind of a living, breathing document, so it's good to include it with what you know today, but you know, things can always change. So if you find out you are relocating something, or even if something changes after we do some field work and we're designing and we have to shift something, we find we're closer to a wetland, we're always checking this, and you can always bring it back to the board to amend it to make sure you're covered, but we're just doing it to the best of what we know at this point.
So even if I sign it now, we can always change it if we need to?
You would only have to take it back to the board, yep, because you're acting as lead agency on coordinated review with an unlisted, yep.
So right now, I just need to confirm that everyone agrees that I
Yep.
can sign this.
Yep.
Does anybody have any further discussion, or are you okay with me signing it? All right, well, I don't know if we need a formal resolution.
We'll do the resolution at the end. This is a little bit of a funky process because we'll do part 1, which is the long part, and then part 2, which is just a checkbox, and then part 3, which is the negative declaration, and then we'll get into the resolution, so.
And did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, when you were talking about, the water erosion and that was gonna build the dry pond, where does the water, the runoff water go? Just leaches in the ground?
Yeah, so what we will intend to do is we have to follow the DC's manual for design guidance for this, but basically we include and we design up to the, you know, the highest year storm. We have runoff reduction volume that we have to meet with this stuff, but our intended plan, what we try to do is everything will be sloped into one drainage area, hopefully, and we would go into a sediment pond that'll flow through, you know, have some rocks in there, stuff like that, catch any sediment buildup, and then it'll overflow into an infiltration pond that'll be designed to handle, you know, your 100-year storm volume, where everything will infiltrate into the ground. If we can't do that, it'll be handled during design if we have to do something different. So then again, I'm sure our design will go back to the board and there'll be opportunity for public comment, because we want a design, you know, something that's gonna work, something that's gonna be low maintenance. And as always, you know, we wanna try to keep capital costs down during construction. It's just, unfortunately, as soon as you break that 1 acre of disturbance for a total project area, which we're well over, you're tripped into, you know, doing this for DEC.
Will that pond head towards Patterson Brook and wetlands, or will it be
The
positioned away from?
So the outlet will, but we're going to be far enough. You're likely, based off soil conditions that we can see visibly, is you're going to infiltrate before you hit those zones.
Yeah, we'll do a perk test.
Yeah, so we're still going through, I mean, we have to get through the design of those items. There's requirements that we have to do infiltration testing in the soil. It's not just, we're not just putting something on paper. We're gonna go out, we'll do infiltration testing, make sure we can achieve conservatively, you know, what our design points are. So,
And you look into it as Patterson Brook is a big trout stock brook?
so yeah, so we will go through full permitting with DEC.
I live on Patterson Brook,
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so we will go, we're not, this doesn't circumvent any permitting, so we will go through DEC permitting requirements we have to do, it's gonna be a thick manual for the stormwater pollution prevention plan that covers everything and anything that can happen during construction. During construction, there's weekly inspections that need to be made during construction, not only for erosion sediment control, but also for the post-construction control practices. Those are documented, they'll be put in a mailbox at the site, the big black SWIP mailbox that's usually placed out there. And like I said, when we go through the design phase, I'm sure we'll be back and there'll be opportunity for public comment if something does come up in the design stage that, you know, raises any concern. Yeah.
Well, our 100-year rainstorms have come to about every year now. So
Yeah, like I said, it's changing.
Definitely.
Yeah, we are very well aware. That's why, you know, we're conservative with the design, so we want it to handle. So I will run into part 2 and then run right into part 3 next. So part 2 is the impact assessment. So this is just check the box. So you're determining if it's going to be no or small impact may occur, or moderate to large impact may occur. So 1, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. 7, will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? No. Public, private wastewater treatment utilities? No. And when I say no, it's, you know, no or a small impact, which obviously we're going to be designing these items in accordance to, you know, any permitting requirements. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, or architectural or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, which is wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resource or human health? No. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? So part 3 is basically making the determination of significance. So we basically said no or small impact will occur in respects to all environmental concerns as outlined in part 2 impact assessment. At this time, if there's anything the board wants to add as a statement, this will go into basically your public record just to show we went through the requirements. So we have the bottom section, check this box if you have determined based on the information and analysis above and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. So what that does by checking this box is ensuring the board is all in agreement with everything listed on these environmentals and that you're issuing a negative declaration, which ties into the resolution too. So we can go through the resolution at this stage, and then what we'll do is basically you would sign, if the resolution passed, you sign part 3 stating that it's a negative declaration for the environmental impact. impact. So I can read the resolution here. It says resolution adopting negative declaration for the Town of Thurman new highway garage project. Whereas the Town of Thurman Town Board has the authority to review and approve the proposed project for the creation of a new highway garage located in the Town of Thurman, and among other duties and responsibilities is required to complete the secret process. Whereas the Town of Thurman new highway garage project has been classified as an unlisted action due to project scope, which includes the construction of new highway garage, general site work, and installation of required water, wastewater, stormwater, electrical, and telecommunication utilities. We can also tweak that one and just add in so it's included in here also, even though it's in the seeker part 1 here. We can put relocation of existing transfer station.
I don't think we have a copy of that resolution.
Oh, you don't?
I don't see it in mine.
I don't have one either.
Wait a minute. Oh, it's the cover page of that. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
it's the cover page of what we were just told.
Oh,
That one, yep.
okay.
Yep, I didn't catch it, sorry.
No, you're fine. So the second whereas, what I suggest we do is just tweak that so that also states the relocation of the existing transfer station. So where it says the project scope, comma, which includes the construction of a, and then we can say new highway garage, and then add and relocation of existing transfer station. And I'll move into the third whereas. Whereas the Town of Thurman determines that it will act as lead agency status from involved agencies for the above referenced project, and that an uncoordinated review may be performed for an unlisted action. So again, unlisted action, uncoordinated review means you're not sending the determination to all the involved agencies, as you're not required to. Whereas the seeker process requires a lead agency to be designated to facilitate the seeker review process and to make a determination of significance when provided with sufficient information. Now and therefore it be resolved that the Town of Thurman Town Board has declared itself lead. Resolved, having completed parts 1, 2, and 3 of the SEAF, which is the Short Environmental Assessment Form, the Thurman Town Board, as lead agency, hereby determines that the proposed project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment for reasons set forth in Part 3 of the Short EAF. Resolved that the Thurman Town Board is authorized to take all actions reasonable and necessary to file a negative declaration and discharge the Thurman Town Board's responsibility as lead agency for this action.
I'll get a copy of your, what you just broke down, just so I know I have.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you mine.
Okay.
My handwriting is very poor, I'm sorry. So it just said, all I did is I added this and I said, and relocation of existing transfer station.
Okay,
Alright?
thank you.
So, if the board agrees with that, then you would just pass a resolution and then sign part 3, and that would conclude the environmental review. And again, if something changes in design, or something ends up getting added, or there's a shift made that impacts this, it's just one more meeting to make that change, and you can always amend it as you go through design, as long as it's done, before construction.
Okay, so we'll bring this resolution to the floor.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Randy makes the motion to bring it to the floor, second. Charlie seconds it. Charlie did, yep. And, do you have any other discussion that you wanna have before we vote? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So then at this time I can sign the other one?
Yep, part 3.
Yeah.
Yep, and all the part 3 is the negative declaration. So you've signed part 1, part 2 requires no signature, the check boxes. Part 3 is the negative declaration you sign, and then the resolution.
Okay.
So at the end of it, as long as, we don't need a copy tonight, but if you end up sending Gary a copy, we'll just keep it in our file too. And then if anybody reaches out, you just keep it on record for the public to let them know you've done your due diligence and closed out environmental process. And I know that was part of the requirements too for the bonding.
Okay. So any other questions about this part of the highway garage? No? Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I guess we'll head out, is that okay?
You can if you want to. Do you want me to make you a copy of this real quick and you can take it with you?
Yeah, must,
So this resolution about authorizing construction, they don't need to be here for this?
We can still, we're not, we don't have to go, we can stay.
I don't wanna keep you here longer, I'm not sure what Deb's intention was with this.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, the other thing that, what I received from the attorney was that we first had to have the proposed negative declaration resolution.
Yep.
So we have that taken care of. And then the next part is the bond resolution, which goes into,
We'll stay for
oh,
we'll
yeah.
stay for that.
have you guys
Yeah.
seen
It
this?
was,
that. I saw the electronic version of the final, I don't have it memorized, but we're, you know, if anything comes up with questions, we're not attorneys, but we can try to answer anything that may come up.
Was there anything in there that caught your eye?
I didn't see any major
Okay.
issues.
So are you gonna jump right into this? Do you want me to
Yeah,
make
we
a,
can while they're here,
you want me
yeah.
to make a motion to bring it to the floor?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, do you want me to go through and read this? Read the whole thing out? I should, I mean, it's 5 pages long, but
Yeah.
I can.
It's a
If he
lot.
can- If he can
I
read
know.
all that.
I'm sure you're
I
sick
mean,
of me,
we
so.
can just say that it's available to the public
Yeah.
on request.
Okay.
So,
It's online.
it's online, on the
Yeah,
top
this is
website.
online, it's on the
They put
website.
the meeting packet on, so.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, you wanna go right into discussion, cause I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So, I mean, our borrowing amount, $4.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, when I spoke to you, one of the things that we talked about was that, you know, we have the current, estimate for the project cost. But in all likelihood, it's gonna take probably 2 years before we get to completion of the project. And I think you had estimated, or put a 3% factor in there for
For next year.
cost increases for each of the following years,
Yeah.
which brought the total cost of the project to $5.3 million. So, not having dealt with bonds on this scale, if we do a resolution to borrow $4.5 million, 2 years lapse, and it turns out to be a $5.3 million project, how do we address that since we've limited ourselves to the $4.5 million? So we're gonna come up $800,000 short.
Well, it was my understanding that we could start, and it wouldn't take 2 years to do it. Once we
Once
would go.
it comes in, if you put it out for bid, let's say this year, the bids come in and they're locked in place.
Okay, let me ask you this, so let's,
It's not the construction, it's when the bids come in.
So,
gotcha, okay, I
In-
understand that.
in you doing, my understanding, like I said, I'm gonna preface this by stating I'm not an attorney, but when you typically do a bond resolution, it's authorizing you to move forward with it, but you are not pulling the money yet. So you might not actually pull the money, you know, to bond until you get closer and we see what the numbers are for construction when you need that money. So yes, it's authorizing, and you do wanna be conservative and prepared to the amount of money that is required to
That's
bond
what I'm
it.
getting at.
Yes.
Because this is the borrowing up to that
Correct.
limit.
Correct.
So if we actually need to go over that,
Mhm.
how do we resolve that? Do we have to go back for a new bond resolution? Do we have?
You typically would revise the bond resolution, yeah.
Okay.
After we get bids, you mean after it goes out?
Yeah,
to bid?
yeah, I mean, you basically have to ensure that you have the money prior to construction. So, you know, once we find out where we're at, there's a time period, but I mean, it'll be a little bit of a gap. I don't think the process to actually, you know, this is authorizing you to move forward with it, and that can even get you started into construction prior to rebonding. You know, obviously, it's a big commitment, and you want to ensure there's municipal buy-in, so you would, you know, update the bond resolution at that time.
So I guess that kind of leads into my next question. Can somebody talk about what the steps in this process are? I mean, I know we're gonna talk about passing this resolution today, but this doesn't actually authorize us to borrow the $4.5 million. We still have to have a permissive referendum. So what's the schedule? What are the steps in this process? So that my concern is that we got this, I mean, I've only seen this 2 days ago.
Mhm.
And the public hasn't seen it for any more than that, just the 2 days. And what I wanna make sure is the public has an opportunity to have their input on this.
Mhm.
And so if we're gonna go to permissive referendum, we have to have that step, and then what are the other steps in this process, and what's the timeline?
Yeah.
And what's the most likely end date for this?
Well, Cynthia and I both did get memorandums from our attorney that lists all our steps, so if you want, I'll go over it and you tell me if you agree.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I would defer to bond counsel, which is not a great
We
answer.
did, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about just the bond part of this.
Well,
I'm
no,
talking
we-
about the whole construction.
And I will answer those, I can answer those pieces comfortably.
Good,
So I'll just go through the list he gave me and then,
okay.
and you can probably, I mean, it came to me and you, but I don't know, I guess we could give it out to the board if you felt we
We
could.
go make
You know.
copies? I gotta-
Yeah, this part of it that you and I got, and we had to decide how we're doing, you know.
Will be the,
If you want, I'll start reading it. Okay, so the first thing was the negative declaration resolution, and it says this must occur before the bond resolution is considered. So we took care of that.
Mhm.
And then, the bond resolution itself must be adopted by a vote of not less than 4 town board members. After that, it goes to the referendum notice, which is one of the other, it's what the town clerk will have to do. And they did give us a notice of adoption of bond resolution, subject to permissive referendum, which has to be published in the town's official newspaper and posted on the sideboard as soon as possible after the bond resolution is adopted. Then a 30-day period begins with the date of the adoption, if it's published within 10 days of the adoption of the bond resolution in the Post-Star. If it's published later than that, then the 30-day period begins after the date of publication. They want 2 original affidavits of publication that Cynthia will have to send to the attorney. No further action can be taken during the 30-day period. The public has to file a petition for referendum. Assuming that no petition is filed, then the town can proceed to fulfill the estoppel notice requirement. And they gave us a copy of that for Cynthia to use. And Cynthia, please prepare a certificate of no referendum after the 30-day period has ended, as long as there is no need for one. And that estoppel would have to be published in the paper as well. The public then has a 20-day period following publication of the notice to challenge the town's authorization of the financing. The bond resolution is subject to permissive referendum, so the estoppel notice cannot be published until after the 30-day period for filing the petition has passed. So then they say, please let us know if the bond resolution is adopted, when the notice of adoption subject to permissive referendum is published, and when the summary and estoppel notice is published. And they want 3 town clerk certified copies of each. So that's the order that it goes in. But in between that, he also, once this bond resolution would go through, he still has to go to the comptroller's office and get permission for us to even bond because of the amount of state-owned land.
Yeah.
And that's not done yet. That doesn't get done till this resolution gets
we gotta
done.
get more
So-
paper.
The resolution for the money, if we were able to go out to bid and we knew it was more, then we would have to address that, but I really wanted to keep it to that number, even if it means making changes to lower the cost, because
Yes.
as far as financing it,
Yeah.
it's a big chunk of money to handle.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I-
So, I'm sorry,
Yeah, no,
I
go
didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm on the page you're on, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, so we're clear, because I'm not sure that everybody that's either watching this meeting or is gonna learn about this understands what permissive referendum really means. So, I mean, that only is if the public petitions the town board to
Mhm.
actually hold a referendum. So the public has they don't get to vote or have any input per se, I shouldn't say it that way, unless they petition the board and request a referendum.
Right.
Okay.
But if you wanted to have, we did have one already about the highway garage where we hung it on the wall, remember, and
Yeah.
public some public did come, I mean, and we can open that up. I would really even like to be here at certain time periods if somebody wanted to come in and discuss it with me, you know, or if they wanted us to meet in a special meeting.
Mhm.
Whatever somebody who's part of the public, who's gonna be affected by this wants to do. I mean, it has to be very open to everybody here,
Mhm.
so. And I figured out a way to finance it with what changes in our budget can occur.
Mhm.
And what I would come up with would be $1 per thousand increase as of right now
Mhm.
in the budget.
So when, I'm sorry, I'm getting off the track from, we were talking about timeline and I'm kind of changing subjects here. But since you brought that up, when you calculated the payment on this, what was the annual payment and what interest rate were you using to calculate that?
My payment, I went on to an amortization website and I printed out the amortization for 4.5 million for 30 years at 6%.
For how many years? 30 years?
30 years.
At 6%. And do we know if, I mean, that's the number, 6% is what I used when I did my very rudimentary calculation before. Do we know if that's what bonds actually are right now or not?
No, we don't.
You're running about 4.2.
For municipal bond?
So if it's lower, that's even better, but I used 6 only because when we purchased the trucks, that was what we had to pay then.
Okay.
So if a bond would be lower, just because it's a municipal bond, I don't know. But
Yeah, I would suggest also, if there's additional questions, go back to, you know, I know Bob Hafner's working for you with your bond counsel, and he's
Mhm.
very knowledgeable of, you know, recent rates and where you're at, and can definitely assist with that.
Right.
In you guys' experience with your engineering estimate of the cost of the project, where have the bids been coming in compared to your estimates?
Yeah, the square footage cost is hovering around between 248 and 250 in similar buildings.
That's what
And
the
that's
actual
what-
bids have been, and
Correct.
that's a number you used in this estimate?
That's correct.
Okay.
There's little things that can change, like the stormwater stuff, but that's where, you know, when we're going through design, we're not just gonna, you know, we're trying to meet your demands, meet your budget. We'll highlight anything that may come up, and what we try to do is strategize when we do have a bid. If there's an item that it may be like a borderline a wish list item or something that we want to break out as a specific lump sum as a piece that may be optional to pull out. You know, if it's something, you know, we know this is your budget. It's not always as simple as let's increase the bond, we're going to go for this. We got a budget we want to work within, and we're here to help the town get through that process. So, you know, we've done it before. You know, if there's things we have to do to try to get creative or intend and plan it while we bid it, you know, we just try to make sure there's a lot of competition, a lot of bids when this thing goes out. You know, it's published in New York State Contract Reporter, your local papers as well. We make calls to everybody, you know, that we deal with, and you know, we're here to help you get through the process and make sure we're getting everything you're hoping for, you know, what price we can. So, and it'll depend, and I know we can talk schedule too.
And I know Pat's doing a lot of work. He's doing the site prep. You'll be doing the well.
Right.
We'll be around.
Septic.
We'll design the septic,
Mm-hmm.
but you will be doing it. But
Mhm.
we'll be around to help
Yeah.
and all the stormwater.
Okay.
So that saves us money
Yeah,
as
it's a
much.
lot, yeah.
Yeah, for Pat to do all that.
So back to the schedule. So once we get through the process for the bond resolution and all of that, where do we go?
So schedule, and I don't mean to make a big open gray area, but basically what would happen is we have to get through the permitting process with our designs, and I know Gary has a really, you know, good head start on everything. There's some field work we have to do for some stormwater. We'll have to get through APA and everything else. So those are the kind of uncontrollable things. Once we are ready and we're approved to bid, we're here to get this out to bid as early as we can in the process, and then typically we do, I think minimum is like a 3 week, but we'll do like a 4 week bid period. when we go from there. And we can give you a written schedule as we see it from date of bid with a timeline out for construction schedule so that you can see that and how you can tie it in. The permitting is unknown, 4-week bid period. And then what we do is typically we'll review bids within a 1 to 2 week period just to make sure there's no issues with the documents that are coming back for the bid. We call references with the apparent low bidders at the time to make sure everybody's qualified for this. And then what we do is we write the recommendation letter based upon that, because this one is a building project over $500,000. So that means it's Wick's law comes into play with New York State, which means 4 separate contracts, right? So we're gonna have general electrical, HVAC, plumbing. So you may have up to 4 separate primes for the project at the site. You may not, you might get low bidders on a couple. So after that period, if the board approves it at that time and it comes in within budget, then you can move forward into the construction. So basically, that'll allow you to move forward. We send out agreements to them. They have about a 14-day period when we send agreements to provide bonding, insurance, and everything back to the town. We review it, and then you can sign agreements, and then immediately, as soon as possible after that, we have a pre-construction meeting and commence construction. So that's the area that we can control. The permitting, we've been around the block with this. We try to fast track what we can. And as far as where bonding and everything comes into play, we work directly with your bond counsel. Like I don't know, it sounded like they need OSC approval at the end of it because of state land.
Yeah.
So all that's gonna be needed, but that's not gonna stop us from actually bidding it. You just don't wanna sign construction agreements. And the thing you have to look out for is make sure we get through that process prior to having your bids back, because we typically have like a 45-day window we put in our contracts. That's a typical industry standard. We can extend it a little bit, but 45 days after the bid opening to accept award. If you go beyond that, then you start having cost increases, materials can go up and things like that, and you want to get on submittals and make sure they get material orders because you don't know what can happen. So we can give you that as a board in writing on the areas we can control, and then work together with your bond counsel on when they think they'll get through their process, and then we'll strategize, because that's my understanding is that's your bond resolution, which allows you to pull, but until you're ready to do it, then you'll make the calls to the banks or whoever you're using to actually, pull your money to be ready. And I don't believe, you have to pull it all at once. There's short term to get through certain periods. We'll look at it from a construction scheduling standpoint, and that's the other thing we put in the bid documents. We can be restrictive as the town wants. We put milestone dates in there, but you also have to be realistic on, lead times for equipment and things like that. So if there's a drop dead date, when we know when we're gonna bid and you want a certain drop dead date for closeout, that's the date we put in the contract documents. We also put liquidated damages in there, which is a certain cost per day. It can be $1,000 a day, which would cover overruns if the contractors exceed their milestone date and they don't provide, a reason that's sufficient to the town. You can go after liquidated damages, which would cover additional engineering oversight, additional administrative work, and for them not hitting those dates. So that's how we can control that process. And like I said, we're transparent with it, and we will give you everything we can control in writing so that you have it, and work with your bond counsel to make sure we're strategizing when you're actually planning to pull money, and make sure it's coming in within budget, not doing it too early and not doing it too late.
Do you think it'd be, I'll have to talk to Bob, but maybe it's better to do a 1-year ban, and then at the end of 1 year, if we needed more money, we could do that?
Why don't we can put together just a little email blurb, and then, we're happy to jump on a quick conference call with them too. That's what we typically do on these projects, so that we can, okay, here's our construction period, this is what we're estimating, and then see where we end up. And then, he has that knowledge. We typically stay out of the fiscal side of it, other than coming up with a capital cost estimate and figuring out ways we can, make it come in budget, but we can work directly with them, so.
He has the proposal then, he
Yeah.
has a copy of
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think it's customary or normal to use a ban to get through until you know what the final
Yeah.
cost of the project is.
100%.
Yeah,
And that's the other thing is, we're probably because we've been through this so much, we try to be conservative, which means err on the side of caution. So when we see a bid, we also want to carry a certain percentage of contingency. So just because if your bids come in at that number, aren't the number of construction that we're estimating, that that's not a good thing, because we want contingency there as well to cover unforeseen circumstances. Should we, we're gonna do all our due diligence. We're doing borings and stuff like that, or test pits at least.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna do soil borings, and then we'll do test pits for the septic and.
So we try to get ahead of things that we can control and try to mitigate anything that could potentially come up. But there are always things that can come up, and we recommend typically holding a certain percentage for contingency, at the time you award the bids, and make sure you have that. So typically, you'll have your plan. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
So back to the timeline. You've given a good description of the timeline.
Yeah.
But you haven't given me any dates yet.
Well,
well, I guess what I'm gonna ask you is, like, you talked about the gray area with the permitting and stuff.
Yeah.
And I realize that you don't have control over that.
Yeah.
But the permits that we're gonna need the neg deck from the park agency.
Yep. And we're working on that currently.
And what's the general time frame to get that
So
neg deck?
they're making us do something new we haven't gone through before. I don't know what it's called, but we submit a GIF, and then they tell us when to jump and what we need to do. So that's what we're doing right now. So there's a few more forms we have to fill out. You don't remember what it's called, do you?
No.
We have Jen working on it
Yeah,
at the
Jen's-
office. So if she hasn't resubmitted, we submitted the GIF already a while back. They received comments back. I know she's going through the required items to submit that back in. So I don't have a time frame. We can make that call and get back to you and put.
Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna have to get back and put together a firm schedule. I'm not trying to deflect. I
No, I
truly am
understand.
not. But I know you have a substantial amount of design done. We have a preliminary idea of stormwater. We have to get out and do the field work for stormwater. We still have to do. Are we using the sub for borings?
Yeah, I'll reach out to get some subs.
So if
Somebody to do it.
if we're approved to move forward on those pieces, we can lock those in and schedule them now so that we can, finalize the design, and that's gonna correct our final design assumptions.
My purpose for asking these questions and raising this, having this discussion,
Mm-hmm.
is so that people are realistic about the expectations about what the time frame is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want people to be like thinking that, within a year we're gonna have a garage built, when there's a lot of unknowns we don't know about. And how
absolutely.
long can it take, for some of these permitting steps to happen?
It's all over the board. Fortunately for this one, the permitting, I'll kick myself for saying it, but it shouldn't be overly difficult. The DEC SWIP, we do
They're
them
straightforward.
almost every day.
Yep.
As long as the site conditions are what we think they are, they should be reasonable. Go pretty quick. Same thing for septic. It's just a conventional, subsurface septic disposal system. Same thing, because of design flow, that'll probably go to DOH for a quick review. I mean, that's not substantial. And then it's just building code. The contractor's going to get that prior to construction, essentially.
Yeah,
And then-
he obtains the building permit.
And then it's just getting through APA, really. The other hang up is, it's not hang up. I mean, we've been through the process before, but once your bond process is done, the OSC approval, that I'm sure your bond counsel or your attorney will help you out with as well.
Yeah,
It's
they're
just,
doing that, yeah.
but that piece, again, that piece of it doesn't really matter to us. That's just, so you can actually pull money prior to construction. So, that's where we have to time the bid. So I don't have exact dates today, but what we can do is we can go back, we will call anybody that we're proposing to use as subs so that we can get authorization to move forward with those pieces as far as the soil borings go, and get that, and then we'll come back with an actual design drop dead date. Did you have one in your proposal?
No.
We will get that together, and then we will have our full construction timeline as we see it with a conservative estimate. And we can provide that to the board for comment if that works for everybody.
That would be helpful,
Just-
have that before we go to the public and.
Yeah.
have the public.
Just so we will highlight, the areas we can't control. We can control, when we finalize a design. The only thing outside our control, fortunately for this one, there's not funding where we have to use subs, but we will use subs for like the soil subsurface boring investigation. So we'll typically use a geotechnical engineer for something like that to provide us the report for liability to verify our design assumptions, with foundation. So that's again, we can still pretty much finalize our design, and then if the design changes, we'll just have to tweak a foundation design slightly, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's all I do.
yeah.
I
And-
noticed that you're probably shooting me while we get up. You probably won't break ground till early spring. Right now, contractors are busy. It's a
Sure.
good time to go out this year, obtain bids, and then they can get right on it early next spring,
And
depending on the winter.
how many weeks or months from the time they break ground
It's
on a
gonna
project
be-
like this to
It's a
complete?
prefab building, so it looks like it's gonna go up fast, but it'll take a good, probably 14, 16 months.
And a lot of that's gonna depend on Pat's time with his
Pat-
guys to do the,
Well, Pat needs to have the site
Correct.
build ready,
Mhm.
probably, you should get it done before winter. Have it compacted and everything,
which means we've gotta relocate our transfer station.
yeah.
Which
Because
means which things you gotta do to prepare to do that.
Over the winter, after he compacts it, it gets settled, and then the contractors will come in and dig their footings.
Right.
So we'll have to get compaction tests.
So kind of
Are the
best
same
case
people-
scenario is start construction next spring and
That's me, yeah.
construction completion next fall.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
That's best case scenario, that's assuming nothing goes wrong in the permitting process,
Mhm.
or the bonding process, or the bidding
Yeah,
process.
it's all permitting.
And once we
All
have those
agency
bids,
approvals
we're locked into that amount, right?
for 45 days.
Yeah, you're not locked into anything until you sign. So we will handle and assist with the bid process. So we typically administer them in our office, and we'll send them out to everybody. Like I said, you'll publish in your paper and New York State Contract Reporter. So that's what all contractors check. So that'll go out there. When we get the bids back, we review everything thoroughly, and then we provide a recommendation letter to the board for each contract. Say this amount of bids came in. We provide a spreadsheet of a tabulation for each contract, breaking down each line item with a comparison of bids. We call the references on them. Then we're issuing our recommendation to the board. So as a municipality, you pretty much have to accept the low bidder unless there's a glaring, omission or some other reason where they're, not licensed or something like that. So
Yeah.
So
once you sign, then, once you approve the authorizing resolution for that, the notice of award, then you're locked in. So not until that time. So typically, once bids are open, you have usually 45 days. We like to do it the earlier the better, but you have typically the 45-day window from the bid opening until you have to award.
So what you're saying, I guess I'm a little bit confused, you said you were gonna open them in your office, I thought this was.
No, we don't open we handle administration. So by administration, I mean any questions or comments typically come to us. We send the contract packages out. We'll also have them at the town hall if anybody wants to, look at them here. But it's open, it's a municipal process, they get opened at town hall. So our
Right,
bid
okay, I just
documents.
wanted to clarify.
No, we don't do that, no.
Okay.
And what we do is, we
Yeah.
send somebody here to typically, if you're comfortable opening them as supervisor or one of the board members, you're welcome to. But since we know the bid packages, where everything's are, it's a large packet that goes into them and the requirements that they have to come back with. So we know what page to look at and what to write down. And so
We'll
we
have it
typically
here.
do it. And then what we do is we scan it all. Typically we'll take the hard copies, we'll scan it all, make an electronic file, and we deliver the hard copies back to the town as we're reviewing them. But no, it's a formal municipal process. We don't hinder that.
I thought so,
Yeah,
I just, the way
yeah.
it was stated.
Yeah,
it was
no,
inaccurate.
no.
Okay.
Okay, so then I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does all your bonding need to be in place before you accept the bid?
See, that's what I was just
Ti-
considering that.
Typically you have to, resolution, yes.
Yeah.
I'll defer to the bond council on the other answer. You have to have some sort of way, if you're gonna award contracts, you need to have a way that you're gonna, be able to pay these contracts as they go. Typically it might be, we have to approve submittals as they come in, so it could be a month or two before they actually mobilize on the site, depending on their scheduling. If it's something where we're not bidding until the end of the year and they're gonna start mobilizing in the spring, you got a little more of a gap before they're actually billing, but, you know, they may wanna bill on stored materials because if they're ordering things, it's a large expense.
Yeah, they order long lead items.
So typically, yes, you wanna have
Yeah.
at least money enough money to cover some of those costs, you know, and that's where we discuss with the bond council on time frame, and they'll, you know, we're not the fiscal coordinator on that end. We'll, you know, defer to them. We'll tell them our schedule and make sure that you're covered on that end.
Yeah, he seemed to make it sound like this is the next step.
It is.
After the one that we did
Yep.
for you.
100%. That is the next step, and you know that approves you to be able to do that process. That doesn't mean you're taking the money right now.
No,
So,
and it
yeah.
doesn't mean, like, when I have a discussion with the bank,
Mm-hmm.
what is our limit?
Yep.
They would tell me that, you know,
Mhm.
what is the interest rate? If the interest rate is 4 instead of 6, that makes a big difference over
Yep.
30 years, and,
100%.
you know, then I could go higher and not affect the
Yep.
budget and be in the same spot I wanna be.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay,
Are you looking at a ban?
I think that is how it would go. First,
So you got money to work with?
yeah, we'd get a ban, and then, sort of like we did with the water project, it was a ban, and 1 year later,
Yeah.
converted to a bond.
It's like short-term financing, and then you convert to long-term.
1 year.
You can extend a ban for another year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the interest rate's higher on a ban than it is in your bonding interest. if you're
Probably.
Because
regular.
you're taking it for a
Yeah,
short
for a
period,
short
short
period.
time, and then rolling it to long-term. Yeah.
Interest means a lot of money.
Yeah. No, 100%.
But
Yeah.
the contract, I know with the water department, that was written into the contract, that it would be a 1 year ban, then convert to a bond. That
Mhm.
was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was stated.
Yep.
down in there.
Yeah, contractors won't be shy. They'll send it.
Well, when the pay app comes in, you gotta be ready to pay.
Yeah, pay apps will
Yeah.
start rolling in as soon as you sign their contract.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other thoughts before we vote on this? Any other discussion or feelings about it? No? All right. Well, then on page 5, that's where we would vote. It says it needs to be a roll call vote, so we'll do roll call.
Councilman Needham,
Yes.
Councilman Bills,
Hmm?
what was that?
What'd you say?
Yes.
Page 5.
Supervisor Runyon,
Yes?
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Galusha,
Yes.
Okay. We'll move ahead with the things you have to do next, Cynthia, those other resolutions that you have, so maybe Monday I can help you get them in the paper.
when you get them to send me an electronic copy of that thing that has to go in the paper.
Yeah,
I'm not typing it. I want it to be right.
yeah. So then I think the next thing that we need to go over was this agreement that you said that you needed me to sign.
Yeah, that'll get the ball rolling for us.
Yes.
There's
So-
2 copies there. Oh.
There's
Go
2
ahead.
copies. Did you want, it's the proposal that we've received
So-
already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All it is the proposal. There's no change.
Yeah.
All our agreements are they're simplistic. So when we write a proposal like that, the agreement encompasses the proposal. It encompasses the same standard terms and conditions, the same rate schedule that was in it. So there's no change, and it's just the generic language on the front end. I mean, nothing changes. I mean, we've worked
So
with
we had
it.
already voted on the proposal, we
Mhm.
agreed, so if there's no changes, then it's
Yep.
exactly the
there's
same.
some
Yeah.
changes.
And I mean, Gary's been moving forward in good faith anyway, so he's been progressing
Yeah.
design. So
Yeah, they get the seeker going and
Yeah,
we did some SWIP, but not.
so this is the same thing that we had, the proposal, but did you wanna look at it at all, or review it or anything? It's, it was what their rates were for what they were gonna do, we had this already. And it looked like this when we got it. You saw it, right?
yeah, and if there's any questions, let us know. We try to be transparent with all of it, and what we can
That's-
see occurs during construction.
That's pretty much what I gave Chestertown for
Mhm.
their new highway garage. but they went with a company out of Plattsburgh that was 60 grand more than ours. So that gives you an idea. We were there, but they decided to go, I don't know why, but we were the lowest bidder, except that they took the high, I don't know. Just a weird situation.
Is there any wording in here that we need to address to include the relocation of the transfer station?
No,
Or can you just do it under this?
I'm just gonna do it under that.
Okay.
That's,
You can write that in the fine print on there. Gary Free said.
okay.
All right.
We'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so
I'm
then,
only talking a little shop.
Yeah. No, and
yeah,
we're
it's
you
a
know.
small building.
We've worked with you a long time. We're not gonna nickel and
Yeah,
dime. We
that's-
truly do want to do a good job, and you know where there's areas we can save. You know, we're not gonna say, oh no, we need to change for this, change for that. We try to be conservative. Like there is requirements we have to come in for a SWIP inspection. You need a certified inspector during that. We try to cover it. We overlap to save costs on dates where he's gonna be coming out for inspection to do it same day, so we're not sending 2 people out or sending somebody, you know, randomly for something like that. So we try to cover our costs. You know, if something comes up during construction that's a major change, I mean, we try not to increase anything. It's only if it's a substantial workload for us that's, you know, truly justified, which we would
Yeah.
bring as a change to the board if needed. You know, we don't want to see you spend more money. We want your money to go towards construction.
Yeah,
We just try to cover what we could
if you
save.
move a window or a door, you know, that's no big deal.
Do you more or less act as like a clerk of the works on the project?
Yeah, so that's what we have in there. That's why we have the construction estimates, you know, this many site visits. Hopefully we get some good contractors where it'll minimize, you know, the amount that's needed. We're not intending to do 24/7 inspection because we don't believe it's needed, but there's certain milestones. So as we progress, you know, Gary will provide a list. You know, we're very clear about it. So, you know, before we break ground, you'll have a pre-construction meeting. We'll get that list of milestones to everybody so that we're here. You know, if Pat sees something, there's concerns, call Gary,
Yeah.
and you
We're
know,
only 10 minutes
we're
away.
here.
That's-
So
Yeah, I look at rebar and the footings
Yeah,
before,
and-
prior to pouring the concrete.
it,
We'll have a third party to take concrete testing. What they'll do is they'll check the slump as it comes out of the truck,
yeah,
the heat, the air, and then they'll take cylinders
yeah,
for a 7, 14, and 28 day
yeah.
break.
And then also too, once contracts are awarded and we move forward, you know, every piece that's gonna go in there, there's submittals that each contractor is gonna submit to us. We review them, we sign them, we turn around. Anything that is like an opinion-based thing, like color selection, we typically put, hopefully you typically put color selection by owner. That's where it comes to the town, you know, Pat will be grouped in, stuff like that. So when we go through, you get to make those decisions, so we don't choose something that
Yeah, you
you're
pick
not
all
gonna
the
like.
colors.
So those kind of things, you know, we'll try to highlight any of them during design to make sure we're on the same page. But we do all that, you know, all the inspection, all the bid administration as it comes in, just to help get you through the process, because it can be. And then when pay apps come in as well, what we'll do is we'll verify quantity. So if we're not here every day, we'll consult with, you know, whoever may be checking in on that, or if Gary's doing it, make sure that it's applicable, make sure they're not billing 100% of something, you know, make sure it's applicable with the work done. We carry a certain retainage in those pay apps. They're required to submit certified payroll to make sure, you know, there's no issues if there's ever an audit. That's documented with each pay app, otherwise we don't approve them. So, you know, we're here for every step of the way during that.
Okay, so then I just need approval to be able to sign this document. Okay? Good, everybody good?
You're talking about the professional services?
Yeah, this one right here, the Greenville Professional Services. I had signed the proposal already, but I didn't have this until today.
Do you want us to vote on this, I assume? We
I
should.
think we should.
Yeah, okay.
You don't have a copy of it. I was given 2 copies today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, we have one for you to keep here, and then we'll take the
And
other
you'll
one.
take
Yeah,
one.
yeah, and it's,
We're gonna make this a resolution too?
Yeah, I think so.
So it's just a resolution for agreement for professional services, right?
Yes.
It's a resolution for the supervisor to sign the agreement.
For
professional services.
Supervisor to sign.
Yeah.
To sign.
Okay, so who's gonna bring it to the floor? Ed?
And the motion, I'll second it.
Okay.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I can keep this down?
Yeah, we just did 2 copies so that we can take one and with an original, and then you have an original. If you want to scan one to us after,
right.
there's no issue.
She signed
Yeah.
both of them, and we'll keep one,
Yeah.
and they'll keep one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Debbie, do you wanna keep it or do you want me to file it? You might as well keep it, because you'll probably.
We need to sign this one too. One of them goes back to them, and one of them's for us.
I'll give this one to Cynthia.
Now, my cost estimate is only for standard colors, so if Pat picks hot pink for the building color, that's not in there.
Yeah.
He might.
And he pays for it himself. Then I have to give you this, and I have to give you a copy of that. Okay, I guess we're done with the
I think we're good. And I started detailed schedule for Gary, all right? We'll get that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate it.
I'll just make a copy real quick and then
Sure.
we have everything we need. Thanks, Cynthia. You're welcome. I'm small, I'm not that small.
Yeah, it's been too hot.
Everybody stay cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna keep the copy and I'll give you the picture.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a nice night.
You too.
I'll meet with the link.
So, actually, we'll mark it out for you. We'll come up there and
Names
trouble
next.
locate
Or unless
where
John
the
is.
substitute is, give you the elevations in. Okay, and you're compacting it with a 20-ton, yeah, vibrating.
Oh, that,
Yep.
yeah, that is,
That should work.
this is the-
Once that's done, get
this is the thing that
cord ones.
actually should really handle it out, but I guess to board members we can. It just shows you the procedure of what to do. Like, remember I said the negative declaration had to happen first, that this must be sure.
Yeah.
And then there's certain, it lists all the things that,
You don't want the foundation.
that we have to do in the order that we have to.
Yeah.
Oh, Cynthia made copies for all of you, that's why. Yeah, keep it if you want,
No,
but
I'm
it's really a legal document.
I'll let you know.
Alright,
Thank you.
sounds good, thanks, Rick.
Okay, there's public, privilege of the floor, does anybody else wanna speak?
I got some questions about the abstracts. On the town abstract, you got Navistar Financial Corporation for the garbage truck, $157,000. Is, we've paid $55,000 in 3 payments. Is,
Yeah. So what happened when we got the garbage truck, Navistar was holding NCL was holding the money. We'd made all our payments and they had all the money. When we got the truck, instead of having them title it and then us getting it, he gave us back our money. So if you see on the cash receipt side, you don't see that, but he gave us a FedEx check for that amount.
for the two amount, for the 2
For the
payments.
full
a
amount,
year.
that whole full amount, he gave us the check back, and then we paid for the truck ourselves, so that way our title is in our name with no lien.
So we gave them money to collect interest on our money for him to give it back.
Yes,
It's a good way of putting it, right?
yeah, that's exactly what happened. They earned the money by
3 years.
holding ours. 3 years.
of interest.
3
Yeah.
years and 2 months.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what happened there. He thought it'd be better as far as titling it, so we wouldn't have a lien on the title.
And then just below that, we gotta close the general funds, is that because we went to a different bank?
Because we went to a different bank and we had moved the money gradually, and we had to wait for things to clear so we'd know the final balance.
And then you just took this money that's on the abstract and put it into a new bank?
Yep, it's in and out, same as the other one. Yep,
That's all I got.
okay. That was easy.
Well, it's a question.
Yeah, well, it is strange that it has to show up like an expense when it's not really, but that's the only way the accounting system can handle that. Okay, anybody else? Nope, you're good? You're good? Then the next resolution we have is to approve payment of the claims. Who wants to bring that to the floor?
I would.
Okay, and a second? Charlie?
Wait, who said I will? I couldn't tell.
Doug,
Doug
and then
did,
Charlie.
I thought so. And Charlie, did you second it? Charlie? You did the second?
Okay, resolution to approve payment of the claims. Total of abstract 6 for the general fund, June 20th, 2024, is $201,635.23. And as Brian mentioned, $157,000 of that was for the garbage truck that's an in and out, and $33,799 is the money from TD Bank, it's also in and out. Total of abstract 6 for the highway fund for June 20th, 2024 is $57,151.50. The total claims is $258,786.73. So, is there any questions on the abstract? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So, we did the resolution for Winnie, right, so that's done, okay. And the only thing that I have is, the New York class interest, we are right on schedule to earn 50,000 this year if it keeps going the way it is. So I have it right here. So far, year to date, we've earned 20,614 as of the end of May. And right now, we're earning about 6,500 a month. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything? Oh, wait, I have one more thing, sorry. Forgot to mention. Warren County Hazard Mitigation is doing a community resiliency event. It's taking effect on June 25th at 6:30. And there's a flyer up on the wall over there about it if you want to attend. There's also a QR code if you want to look it up and see about it. It's a question and answer for residents about earthquakes, extreme temperatures, dam failure, and things like that.
Not about the hazardous medication, but I've watched this guy sit in the back here. Have we hired an animal control officer?
No, Brett came back and he took back his position. And I have not been able to get in touch with Countrywide. I've talked to one person and left 4 messages, and we're still contracted with Chester as of right now. Anything else? It's time for your resolution. All in favor, say aye.
If I couldn't hear who said the second. Who made the second to adjourn?
I guess I will.
Okay. I thought it was my ear.
No, it wasn't your